All right, welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name once again is Morado. As I did indicate this morning, we're going to be looking at the State of the Nation address delivered by the President. We're going to be interrogating some of the things that the President has told us. Now, on Wednesday, when the President delivered the State of the Nation, what typically happens? There was a reaction by the minority group and then also the majority group, how to counter some of the things that the minority said. Let's watch some of the things that the President said, and then would also watch the minority reaction and that of the majority. And then when we come back, we'll also be hearing from the former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. You know, he's touring some parts of this country. He's in the Bono, I believe, Bono region, and he's actually had to reply or respond to the president's claim that he hasn't engaged in reckless borrowing. It's a very interesting video that you would have to watch. So when we come back, after all of this, I'll introduce my resource persons.
The less than 2-hour presentation of the State of the Nation address by President Akufo-Addo touched on almost every sector of the economy, including the ongoing negotiations for a possible economic bailout by the International Monetary Fund. The President, in an obvious response to allegations of misappropriation of COVID-19 funds, said government, on the contrary, used the monies accrued to cater for the poor during the COVID period.
It is critical that we do not lose the confidence of the people that a crisis that they were led to believe we were all in together was abused for personal gain. Mr. Speaker, it was government that asked for the COVID funds to be audited, and I can assure this House that nothing dishonorable was done with the COVID funds. The responses from the Ministers for Health and Finance on January 23rd and 25th, 2023, respectfully, have sufficiently laid to rest the queries from the Auditor General's report. And I believe any objective scrutiny of these statements from the Health and Finance Ministries would justify this conclusion.
He also used the opportunity to give an assurance to public health institutions that government was working hard to procure childhood vaccines, which have been in short supply for months.
I must say, however, that the current shortage of some childhood vaccines in the country has concerned me greatly. This shortage, if prolonged, will affect negatively Ghana's childhood immunization program, which has been recognized as one of the most successful in the world. The WHO has only recently expressed worry about a steady decline in measles vaccination coverage globally because of the concentration on the fight against COVID-19. In accordance with our desire not to become part of this global trend, government has taken steps to ensure the stocks of these vaccines are procured and supplied as a matter of urgency and emergency. The Ghana Health Service has developed an elaborate program to catch up on children who have missed their vaccine immediately stocks arrive. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage all parents and caregivers to ensure that eligible children are vaccinated once this program begins. No child should be denied access to vaccination. Mercifully so far, not a single child has died as a result of the outbreak.
Despite admitting the economy isn't in the best shape, the president fiercely fought off suggestions his government has been on a reckless borrowing spree.
Mr. Speaker, let me state emphatically that we have not been reckless in borrowing and in spending. It is worth noting that the debts we're serving were not only contracted during the period of this administration.
The president proceeded to defend his track record, insisting the achievements of his governments over the last 6 years is unrivaled.
Beyond the construction of roads, Mr. Speaker, This NPP administration has implemented successfully a national identification system with the Ghana card, constructed more railways than any government in the Fourth Republic, established the Zongo Development Fund to address the needs of Zongo and inner city communities. And under their auspices, we have conducted more infrastructure in the Zongo communities than any other government in the Fourth Republic. Constructed more NCA licensed fiber optic cable than any other government in the Fourth Republic. 90%, 93% of the total. Increase the proportion of the population with access to toilet facilities from 33% to 59%. A large amount of the monies we borrow are for road construction. Shall we dare stop constructing roads? Mr. Speaker, I would like to state categorically that this government has built more roads than any government in the history of the Fourth Republic.
The president apparently has forgotten the people who he killed to become president. Because in 2020, 8 Ghanaians were killed to make him president. He's forgotten that he's president of Ghana. Because the president has given the state of a different country and not the state of Ghana. Because if you talk about the state of Ghana and the president is telling you that there was no corruption with COVID, the president is telling you, President Akufo-Addo, and I'm sure your cameras were here when President Kufuor walked by and I spoke to him. You saw his reaction when I said to President Kufuor that President Akufo-Addo was disrespectful to President Kufuor by claiming that he has done more infrastructure than any other president in the history. Because President Akufo-Addo is not fit to lace President Kufuor's shoes when it comes to infrastructure. As for President Mahama, he's in a different league of his own. He is in a different league that President Kufuor and President Akufo-Addo cannot even come close to. But even using President Kufuor's own record, you can point to the Accra Cape Coast Yamuranza Road. Akufo-Addo should show you what road he has built. Akufo-Addo came here today to mention figures from 2020 and failed to mention what inflation is today. Came and told you inflation was single digit in 2020. Papa, what is inflation today? Inflation is 52%.
Disappointing, frustrating. For a moment, I thought I was watching Cartoon Network. I mean, a president is supposed to tell us the state of the nation, but he was telling us the history of the state of Ghana. He was telling us things that happened 3 years ago. A president ought to be truthful, ought to be candid with the people of this country. Could you imagine the president looked into our miserable faces and told us that he hasn't borrowed recklessly? When you have borrowed more than 400 billion.
There are evidence of what they've used the monies for.
I'm saying that what
1D, 1F, and
first and foremost, let us not allow ourselves to be deceived by these tricks of this president. The purpose for industrialization is to expand the economy, grow it, and create jobs. Now, if 1D, 1F was achieving the purpose for which it was established, then unemployment should have been reducing. As a matter of fact, they took unemployment from President Mahama, 6.8. Today, by the census reports, unemployment is 17.4. They took indeed debt to GDP. Debt to GDP, which was a little over 60%, debt to GDP today is over 96%. Tell me one single thing that is working in this country. Absolutely nothing.
It's a non-story. Everybody in Ghana who doesn't know that we are in crisis, even foreigners, they know that we are in crisis. So it is not about coming to repeat to Ghanaians that the pain, when the people are harboring the pain, you come and tell them, remind them about their pain. The Ghanaians didn't want the president to come and remind us about our pain. What are you doing about the pain? What have you done concretely about the pain? And going forward, what is the remedy for the people? Less irresponsible, wicked, criminal borrowing, if I would say so. Because they were not borrowing even according to the country's needs. They were borrowing because Data Bank, Enterprise Insurance, which belongs to Kenoforata, for every borrowing they do, they earn money. And so you take the debt from 120 billion to over 600 billion. And you tell us that it's not wicked in 6 years. That is criminal. It's irresponsible for you to engage in that level of borrowing. And now today, the country has gone bankrupt. Today, we have defaulted on our debt. We can't pay our debt. And I'm sure you are aware that when you default on your debt, international confidence in you is gone. All the rating agencies, they have rated our economy junk.
He says IMF is in the offing. Don't you think it is going to save us?
What did they tell us about IMF? The IMF is evil. They are working away from it. They organized Kenke Party at the Finance Ministry to celebrate our exit from the IMF. Is that not the case? So you are celebrating the exit from IMF and you are in a hurry to go to IMF. What kind of government is that?
The president never even spoke about corruption. He rather actually more or less endorsed what some of these people are doing. When it comes to the substantive issues, he said things again that are totally false. Show me an airport in Ghana that MPP built in the last 6 years. None. They came to meet the Takoradi, how do you call it, the Kumasi Airport project, and are continuing. I commend them for continuing that. They came to meet the Tamale Airport project. They are continuing to complete it. I commend them for that. But you haven't built any airport. The airport they promised was the how do you call it, the Central Regional Airport. They are still doing feasibility.
Look, I must be honest with you that today's speech by the president has been totally uninspiring, a very depressing address. The president continues to refuse to take responsibility. I mean, at this time, the president is still blaming COVID. He's still blaming Russia, Ukraine. What is leadership about? You must take responsibility. I mean, is Ghana different from Ivory Coast, from Nigeria, from Togo, from all the other countries who are not going through debt restructuring, who are not having a debt exchange program, whose economies have not been declared bankrupt, have not been declared insolvent? So the president should know that there's something fundamentally wrong with his management of this economy, which cannot be these exogenous factors that he seeks to take refuge in. Let me also indicate that I am totally appalled as ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee. The president swiped at the diplomatic community when he said that diplomats are now meddling in our affairs.
We thank the president for being on his feet for 1 hour, 20 minutes, and I think he's touched on most of the things Ghanaians were expecting him to touch on, especially on the debt exchange program. He also touched on the expenditure levels of our country, where we are. The president has once again given assurance that indeed the challenge is a challenge that we can surmount, and he's put in place measures for us to overcome the challenge we are going through. The president also traced back where we came from, what we inherited, what we've been able to achieve in the first 2 years before COVID, the Russian-Ukraine war. He also touched significantly about the petroleum prices, where we went to about $23 per litre. Now we are around $13 per litre. Over 10 cities has been taken off so far. It means we are in a process of recovery, and that's very refreshing. I look forward for a very beautiful debate, and I think that obviously you will hear the minority people as usual. That's what you expect.
They are saying that contrary to what the president said, your government has indeed borrowed recklessly.
The president has emphatically said that we did not borrow, and we haven't borrowed recklessly. Of course, part of the debt the borrowing went into servicing the debt that they borrowed. If you want to do the numbers in terms of percentages, look at how much debt the NDC inherited and how much they took us to, and where we are today. Of course, we all know that the economy is not doing well, but of course, it is not limited to this country.
I think the president's speech today was a very emotional speech. The president gave Ghanaians the picture of where we are. And by being a president, he's not run away from the fact that there are challenges in this country. The president has been frank to Ghanaians and has appealed to Ghanaians to give him the patience. Not also forgetting that the president selling his achievements and what he's done in the road sector.
This parliament, minority majority reacting to the president's State of the Nation address that he delivered in parliament. Let me quickly introduce my resource persons, and when I'm done introducing my resource persons, we'll hear from the former president as well, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. I think it's about a minute soundbite, and then we'll kickstart our conversation. So I do have Mr. Joe Jackson. He is the Director of Strategy and Operations at Dalex Finance. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's good to see you. Good to be here. Always. All right. And also have okay. So His Excellency, Lawyer Godwin Eduzi Tamaklo is also here with us. Good morning, boss.
Good morning, and good morning
to please switch your mic on. Yes.
Good morning, and good morning to my senior, Joe Jackson, and my very good friend. Yes.
Also, let me welcome Mr. Ebenezer Taki Yamusa. He is a public policy analyst who's joined us this morning. Also, a development advocate. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here, and good morning to my colleagues and your viewers.
Thank you very much. So we would shortly be joined here by the representative of the New Patriotic Party, and that's Kingsley Amwekwa Boedu. He is a private legal practitioner as well. In fact, he's here. He'll be joining the table shortly. So let me do this. Let's play the former president's response and reaction to the president's claim that this government has not been reckless in borrowing. Let's watch that video and then we'll start our conversation.
Na baby aga na edru no na obia eka na ofio se omampanyin embeka enjojo Ghana for akoma na se uye nipa. If you're a person who leads people, the first principle of leadership is responsibility. You must take responsibility for every situation and work to solve it. If you don't take responsibility, and you're the kind of leader who is always looking for somebody to blame, you will never be able to solve problems. When this government took over from our government, the total national debt was 120 billion. Today, that debt is almost 600 billion. In 5.5 short years. And the president had the temerity to say that there has been no recklessness in borrowing. What else is recklessness than what he and his finance minister have done? And it's not that the attention was not drawn. From 2018, every budget that they brought, the minority in parliament said, you are overborrowing. Even the World Bank told them that you are risking going into debt distress because of too much debt. And they refused to listen. And today, exactly what they were warned would happen is what has happened. And then you can come and stand in front of the people, you won't take responsibility, nothing, and then you say that there's been no recklessness in borrowing. And then you count some things and say, we did this with the money and all that. So, if he's always quick to shift blame, there's no way he understands the proportion of the problem we're facing.
Okay, so you had the former president, John Dramani Mahama in Bono East, in Kranza North specifically, taking a swipe at the president for saying that he did not borrow recklessly, or he wasn't reckless in the manner in which he's borrowed. Now, we would be focusing largely on the economy, and the reason is simple. If you listen carefully to what the president said, and I'm going to read this. It says, Mr. Speaker, when we make an assessment of what the state of the nation, of our nation is, it would necessarily have to include what state it was in yesterday, the state it is in today, and what state it would be in tomorrow, based on reasonable grounds of expectations. How far back should we be looking to make a judgment on the state of affairs today? Mr. Speaker, I believe that the issue above all that is quite properly dominating the concerns of all Ghanaians, it's the gravity of the economic situation of our country and how we quickly stabilize the economy and work our way back to the period of rapid economic growth. Our currency has been buffeted, our inflation rate has been very high, and for the first time in our lives, debt exchanges have become the language of everyday conversation. As such, Mr. Speaker, I wish to make a departure from the usual format of messages on the state of the nation and concentrate predominantly on the economy, which will enable me nonetheless also to make some statements about the state of our agriculture, education, energy, health, infrastructure, mining, tourism, and security. This is not to belittle the contribution of the other sectors to the growth of our country, but I believe the exigencies of the moment justify the position I'm taking, particularly as all sector ministers continue to provide official updates on happenings in their respective sectors. So we're going to do same. Basically, we're going to be focusing largely on the economy. Of course, my resource persons are free to choose any other sector that they believe they have an issue with. But let me also say that I've been joined by Kingsley Amwakwa. I hope I got the pronunciation. Amwakwa Boedu. He's a private legal practitioner as well. Kingsley, it's good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, boss?
I'm very well.
All right, then. So here we go. So I'll start with Kingsley. And my reasoning is simple. We just heard the former president, and he's taking a swipe. He's taking a dig at the president for saying that he has no moral right. He has no temerity, and that's the word he used, to even say that, or by the stretch of any imagination, that he wasn't reckless in the manner in which he's borrowed. And that one of the things that you do as a leader, as an effective leader, is that you take and accept responsibility. Because once you do not accept responsibility for whatever it is that's happening or something that's not happening right in the country, then you won't be able to fix it because you do not believe that you're the cause of it. You think others are the cause. You keep shifting blame. How do you respond, Kingsley, to what the former president has said, that consistently it appears that this government, led by the president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, doesn't want to accept responsibility for anything, but will take credits for everything?
Thank you. Good morning to my people in Asin Central. Good morning to you all. I do not expect the former president to give a glowing remark to the speech or the State of the Nation address given by the sitting president. And even much so when he has just announced his flag bearership of his party, and his people are saying he's a presumptive leader of it. And so he's seeking to do politics with this. I also want to posit the whole State of the Nation address within the context of what it is meant to be. It is a State of the Nation's address.
Right.
All right. And the president is speaking to the whole of Ghana through the representatives of the whole of Ghana, at a forum where there will be heckling and agreements and disagreements and whatnot. And so he would seek to speak as a father to the nation, especially in these times, in these difficult times. And consistently, we admit that these are difficult times. It will be disrespectful to the people of Ghana for any person in government to say these are not difficult times.
But acknowledging that these are difficult times is not the same as this is the role that I played in getting us to where we are.
I'm landing on that.
Okay.
So these are difficult times,
right,
admitted. And in fact, you've read, let me reread what you said. He said, our currency has been buffeted.
True.
Our inflation rate has been very high. And for the first time in our lives, this exchange have become the language of every conversation. Truth. That's an admission.
Fact.
Okay. Now, he is also speaking to his people. Just like anyone who has a stone to throw at this State of the Nation address will speak to galvanize their base.
Right.
He's also speaking to his people. And any leader within these circumstances will speak to hope. Because without hope, we all just throw our hands in the air and it will become Sarah, whatever we do. And that's not the attitude of this government. Wherever we find ourselves, there's a time for us saying who did this and who did that. But wherever we find ourselves, we must galvanize ourselves and move forward. And so the focus is on what we need to do, what is being done to get out of where we find ourselves. And I think that resonates in everything he said.
So in essence, what you're saying is that the cause for the president to accept responsibility for you in principle is something that you don't think is necessary.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
That is not what I'm saying.
Right.
If he's saying for the first time in our lives, that is when he has been in power. Right? That's when he's at the head of governance. That's an admission. That's an admission. All right? And so if he is going to say, we need to do this, do that to come out of this, I think that's more appropriate.
No, but I'm saying that if you admit in principle that effective leadership also entails accepting responsibility and saying that the buck stops at my end.
Precisely.
And so I take responsibility for A, B, C, D, but I'm also assuring you that I will fix it. You say in principle you agree with that.
Precisely.
So then, do you accept those who keep criticizing this administration that you never take responsibility for anything? Do you accept those who those who criticize you for that?
That we do not take responsibility.
Yes.
I find that difficult. It is probably a posture or a posture of throwing stones at everything that is done. Then we have to explain that, yes, you, for instance, criticized free education. There are challenges with that. But also, there are the good sides of it.
Okay.
You see, so that probably comes across as not accepting that there's something wrong.
Okay.
You see, but
Right.
not to say that we just do not accept. And in fact, we cannot also talk about the economy without talking about three things.
Right.
And whenever we say these things, it is like the public saying, oh, you're just hiding behind it. There is a COVID situation, global, which affected the global economy. There is a Ukraine war. Then there is inherently the things we do as a people. We cannot run away from that. And so, what are we doing to make sure the things we do as a people, the things we've done over a period of time, since independence, over a period of time, that has ended us, or that has put us in this position? What we have to talk about that dispassionately with our party colors and find solution as Ghanaians.
Let me go to Godwin there for this. Godwin, this consistent attack on the government for not accepting responsibility, how do you want that acceptance of responsibility to manifest? Because you've just heard Kingsley, who says, look, this is not the time for us to be talking about accepting responsibility or not, because where we are now, it's only an amalgamation of that which started some time back. It's just the chickens that have come home to roost. So you don't pin this down necessarily on the current administration. And you heard the president himself talk about how, even in terms of debt, some of those debts are legacy debts that he inherited. He's added more. But he can prove to you what he's added in terms of our debt stock. So tell me, one, why this consistent request, or why this consistent criticism of the president or this administration for not accepting responsibility? Why must they accept responsibility?
Okay, so Mr. Akufo-Addo reminds me of our days in school, that any time we get an A or a good grade in school, we'll say, oh, today I got an A. If the grade is not good, you say the teacher gave me.
Okay.
So that's the typical behavior of Mr. Akufo-Addo.
If he gets an A, then credit him for it.
Immediately.
If he gets a B,
the teacher gave me.
responsible for that.
The teacher gave me.
Him. Okay.
Meaning that he deserves something better.
Okay.
By the teacher, possibly a wicked lecturer or teacher, who gave him that low grade. That's exactly the mindset of Mr. Akufo-Addo. And so I was not surprised at all when in the State of the Nation address, as usual, he tried to, gaslight Ghanaians. So in one breath, he tells you, okay, you know what, I've been able to do A, B, C, D. But where he notices that there had been shortfalls as a result of his policy choices, he blames Russia, Ukraine, among other things. So he's never responsible. And let me just demonstrate something to you. If you recall, when Mr. Akufo-Addo wanted the mandate of the people of this country, he postured to Ghanaians that he will be a better leader. And he provides indication why he thinks he will be a better leader. So one, he says that, look, it is as a result of the reckless borrowing by the Mahama administration. That is why Ghanaians are suffering. And so he goes ahead to tell you that, oh, why? Look at how much you are paying for fuel. I will be a better leader, right? Look at your debt to GDP ratio. I will do better. And if you recall, it became very common in those days to listen to Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia tell us that, you know what, I have been in the Bank of Ghana before. I have worked there before. There is money here. It is as a result of bad leadership. That is why things are the way they are. So you see, once you provide a benchmark, you are measured by that. I recall vividly, in one of the lectures at Central University, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia questioned, how come that we were doing interest payment and amortization within a year, 11 billion? He never understood why and felt that that was a mark of reckless borrowing at that time. Now, when you measure the conduct of Mr. Akufo-Addo as the President of the Republic of Ghana with Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia as the chair of the economic mismanagement team, which I called, you will notice that today, consistently from 2017 to date, we'll be doing consistently 33 billion Ghana cedis in interest payment and amortization. Yeah. What is causing it? What is causing it is simple. Because we need to now use more to service our debt by way of interest payment and amortization. Whose causes it? It cannot be John Mahama. If you are telling me that at the time John Mahama left office, our total public debt was 122 billion, and you felt that was offensive, you felt that under no circumstance should a developing country have such a public debt. If by November 2023, 2022, the Bank of Ghana is telling you and I that our total public debt as at November, right, is 575 billion Ghana cedis. And this, for the first time, the Bank of Ghana admits, by way of a footnote, that this 575 billion Ghana cedis excludes the Sino-Hydro commitments, excludes debts owed to the various SOEs, excludes debts owed by ESLA PLC, excludes debts owed by Dachi PLC. So if you put our public debt all together, we are in the region of 600 billion Ghana cedis. That is your scorecard. That is your terminal report. How is that not your responsibility? Because you see, and like I've always maintained,
but I'll tell you, Gordon, that inclusive in that over 600 billion, there's a 122 billion in there, which they're servicing.
You see, so let's even take
the 122 out of the 600.
Even for the sake of simple arithmetic, we are left with almost 500 billion.
It's almost 500 billion.
Almost 500 billion. Yes. So even for the mathematics, and I've always made this point, our friends in the MPP must learn a certain level of humility with the benefit of history. When Mr. Kufuor became president, for the first time since 1992, we became the beneficiary of HIPIC. That HIPIC relief provided us almost $5 billion in terms of relief. Ordinarily, we're supposed to be using that money for interest payment and amortization. So it provided them a certain fiscal space for them to roll out a few of this. Muse, Mahama, and Misata have never been a beneficiary of a debt relief whatsoever. So you need to factor that into the conversation. Today, under the Akufo-Addo's leadership of this country, what is the scorecard? We are dealing with inflation that moved from 15% as of 2016 to 53% today. That is his record. We are looking at exchange rates, and I recall in those days, Bawumia will tell you, when in doubt, look at the exchange rates. Those were his words. He said, when you are in doubt, look at the exchange rate. So you have moved it from 4.2 Ghana cedis to now 13 cedis. That is your scorecard. You have today moved our public debt from 122 billion to almost 600 billion Ghana cedis. Today, debt to GDP ratio, at the time Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia was asking us, would the anchor hold at Central University? our debt to GDP ratio was 56%. Today, we are doing 103%. And you know, if you look at this, and I've read a tweet from Mr. Joe Jackson about even our interest rates. From 25%, we are doing almost 45% today.
True.
How did we get here? It is as a result of your policy choices. And who is responsible for those policy choices?
But Godwin,
it is you.
Godwin,
See, wait. There's something that our president is not, see,
averting his mind to.
Yes. We were in this country where his cousin, the finance minister, told us that we are a proud nation, that we will never go to the IMF. I recall the Deputy Minister of Trade, Michael Befi, said that, what are we going to do at IMF for some small boys in the IMF to be sent to come and tell us what we should do? I recall that conversation. I recall my own learned friend, my mate, John Kuma, on the floor of Parliament, telling us that Ghana would never, and that as to the extent Akufo-Addo remains the president of this country, they will never get to the IMF. So if you do a U-turn, you demonstrate humility by telling the people of this country that it is as a result of my haughtiness, my arrogance. That is why we are where we are today. And I've always maintained, do you know that if we had approached the IMF even a year earlier, we would not be in this distress?
Right.
I know that even when the World Bank and the IMF came out with the Debt Service Suspension Initiative, the DSSI, we had the benefit of signing on to the DSSI. What happened? The finance minister, together with Akufo-Addo, decided that they would not sign on to it. Do you know that if we are signed on to it, would have become beneficiary of almost 19 billion that was available? That would have provided us the needed fiscal space to go on with this, whatever it is that way. But do you know why they could not go for it? The benefit from the borrowing. Because if you subscribe to the DSSI, you cannot go ahead with the borrowings. Because you are telling me that I should suspend your debt services, right? The servicing. Then at the same time, you are piling on more debt. Who will do that? And you see, and this is where I think that the president, Mr. Akufo-Addo, should be humble enough and accept responsibility. Look, consistently, from 2017 to date, Akufo-Addo and the brother, Ken Ofori-Atta, they have been doing $2 billion borrowing annually. That is policy choice. That is not Russia-Ukraine. So if you have a situation where in 2017, you did 2.25 Franklin Templeton bonds, right? What did you borrow on? You borrow on the basis of a certain balance sheet. Today, you have destroyed that balance sheet. You can't borrow on the basis of your balance sheet again. That is policy choice. By 2018, you were doing another $2 billion, now Eurobond. 2019, you did $3 billion. And that was when they decided to go and do that Kenke Wache party after going to borrow. That is policy choice. So from 2018 to 2021, we had done $11 billion in terms of Eurobond alone. In 8 years, Mills and Misata Mahama, Eurobond, $3.5 billion. Just in 6 years, you have done $11 billion. That's policy choice.
Okay.
So if, as a result of these borrowings, you have put yourself in a situation where without a domestic debt restructuring, without sending the Germans to go and beg the Chinese for you, you are telling us that by March, if you do not get an IMF program, the economy will crash. That is policy choice. And I've heard my friends in the NPP say, oh, our problem is Russia, Ukraine. No. And it's simple.
I'll come there.
Just 30 seconds. No, 30 seconds. No, I know. Just that I don't lose my thought on something. You see, if you recall, because we were doing the $2 billion annually, it provided an artificial strength for the city. So for the first time, if you notice, when in 2022,
you couldn't go to the Eurobond.
No, the budget was read.
Yeah.
Immediately the budget was read, we were downgraded by the various international credit ratings.
Right.
On what basis were we downgraded? The people said our debt were becoming unsustainable. That is policy choice. And so as a president, when you put your people through this agony, this pain, what you do in the biblical times is to put on sackcloth and ashes. Our president, having, destroyed this economy for generations, still goes about posturing as though he had done us a favor.
Okay.
That is usually what persons with narcissistic personality, that is what they do. They gaslight you, even when they are hurting you.
But let me
painfully.
That's fine. And before I come to Mr. Joe Jackson, let me just say that I'll get your response. Don't worry, sir. It's 0244-097934. 0244-097934. That's the WhatsApp line if you have any contributions you want to make to this program. Now, we're having a conversation about the State of the Nation address. The President delivered the State of the Nation address to Parliament on Wednesday, and we're asking whether that's the true state of the nation. Of course, it depends on where you stand, and we're interrogating some of the things that the President has said. Now, let me also do this, that if you... Okay, maybe I'll do this later. But it's 0244-097934. That's the WhatsApp 02... Oh, sorry. I'm told it's been changed. It's actually 0249-155-646. So 0249-155-646. Now use the one on the screens, please. Use the one on the screens. Forget about the one I advertised earlier. It's 0249-155-646. That's the WhatsApp line. Now, Mr. Joe Jackson, I know it must sound like a tired, convoluted subject matter because you've had cause to comment on this several times. It has to do with our debt stock, our public debt stock, and whether indeed it constitutes reckless borrowing or not. And we have heard government spokespersons tell us that we had to borrow because we had to borrow. We didn't borrow because we were happy to be borrowing. They'll tell you about the banking sector cleanup, which they believe they had to do, close to 29 billion Ghana cedis. They tell you about the energy sector areas that were left behind. It's close to about, 2-point-something billion, US dollars. They'll tell about Get Fund, some $650 million US dollars that was left behind. They'll give you a tall list of basically liabilities that were left for them to come and pay. And these were, monies that had to be financed. So how do you blame us? And again, they'll tell you that this government has taken one of the boldest, or is funding one of the boldest policy or social intervention programs in this country. There are 3 SHS, 1D, 1F. I'll give you a tall list of them, and you know some of them. I mean, help us understand whether, so first of all, what constitutes reckless borrowing? I mean, you're a finance person. What would you say constitutes reckless borrowing?
Well, thank you very much. Listen, reckless borrowing in my book is simply this, is borrowing where you are at high risk of failing to pay. Borrowing where you are at high risk of failing to pay. Borrowing such that when anything goes wrong, you can't pay. Right?
Okay.
So, what are the things that could go wrong? The rainfall in Ghana could go bad due to the weather.
That's a force majeure.
Yes, but that is reckless borrowing. That you have so little, it's like saying that you are so close to the edge that if you fell ill for 2 weeks and you couldn't go to the market, all hell will break loose in your family.
Right.
Prudent behavior will tell you that, have some savings so that when you fall sick, you can fall on it. Isn't that prudent behavior?
Right, that is prudent behavior.
So reckless behavior is that you chop all you have every time so that when anything goes wrong, you can't pay.
see.
That has to be the understanding.
Right.
So the question now is, when somebody says you've indulged in reckless behavior, is the behavior of this regime, can it be deemed as reckless? Right? And here I'd like to quote from the Minister of Finance. Okay. This is in 2017, his first budget. And he goes on to say, what do you call it? Interest payments alone accounts for 42% of the government's total revenue.
Right.
He says that a total of 10.8 billion cedis is paid as interest on loans, 5 times more than the money allocated to ministries over and over again.
Right.
And he goes on to use the term, there's no fiscal space to maneuver. Now, what does that tell me? It just tells me that if there's no fiscal space, you have a choice. You can choose to skate along the edge, or you can choose to say, let's scale down in all those what do you call it, programs. Mm-hmm. So that prudent behavior means that if something goes wrong, I have some money to operate. Today, if something happens and I'm not paid for next month, and I come to you tomorrow and say, Moro, you didn't know my family has not been paid for next month, so I can't pay my children's, I can't feed my children. You say, but Joe, what's wrong with you? So all the time you were walking around talking plenty, you couldn't put together some small saving, so 1 month not being paid,
right.
Your children are hungry. That's the issue. Mm-hmm. In 2017, first budget, we knew what the problem was. Mm-hmm. My problem is that we constantly skated so close to the edge that the moment COVID came and tipped us trouble, the moment Ukraine war, that one, it was just a tap. If COVID pushed us, Ukraine war tapped us. Wahala. Why I would agree.
Are you suggesting that without these twin exogenous factors, we still would have been here?
Since 2017, you will bear evidence. Some of us have been saying, you borrow too much, you can't pay. You borrow too much, you can't pay. And listen, this refrain did not start with the with this regime. This refrain started with the NDC. And if at that time we thought you had borrowed too much, how can we come here? Now finally, the doomsday scenario that we all predicted is staring at us in the face and say that, and we'll say that, listen, you diagnosed the disease, right? But you fail to take the remedial action. You still skated as close to the edge as possible. Then what we feared, my own personal fear was a famine. My own personal fear was terrorism in West Africa that would bring an influx of people. Actually, to be honest with you, none of us predicted a COVID, but it happened. All it did was that it brought this economy to a grinding halt. What did this mean? It's just like all of a sudden you didn't get your pay, or you got 20% of your pay, or 30% of your pay. Of course, that is the immediate cause of your children being hungry. But I have to ask you, why didn't you have some small savings? Why did you always eat all you got and even borrowed more? That is really where some of us can't help but say, His Excellency, think about it all. As far back as 2017 in your first budget, you diagnosed the problem. Yeah. Why did you still keep all these fancy, and you see, it's easy to tout growth. And say, I grew by this, I grew by this. Those growths, that growing is a choice. You see, when we save, we deliberately say, I won't spend this much because I want to put it away for a rainy day. It is a deliberate choice you make. It doesn't mean that you have so much that you don't know what to do. It is a deliberate choice you make to say, you know what, this morning I could go and eat in Kempinski Hotel and spend 250 cedis. But you know what? I will eat cocoa and bread. Because when I eat cocoa and bread, that amount of money I can save. Right. My problem is that we didn't save. My problem is that we didn't put money away for a rainy day. My problem was that the rainy day eventually came. And so, whilst every expenditure was approved by budget, by the parliament, every borrowing was approved by parliament. So in essence, all of us are in the same soup. My problem was that, where was the saving for a rainy day? Where were the reserves that would have held us up? What was, we went through life. Listen, even the Bible in James says, you fool, who says tomorrow will be as good as today? It's, you know, it's a principle of that is good for your personal behavior, for my corporate behavior, and for us as national behavior. I only have to agree that there's some level of recklessness. Not because, I'm not even going to go into whether this program is good or that program is bad, that starts a whole new. I'm just saying that as a nation, we should have had scaled back on expenditure or ramped up our revenue collection dramatically so that we would have some, in quote, what they call fiscal space. All that it means, fiscal space that they were talking about, the economics, all for me and you is that when you earn 1,000 cedis, fiscal space is that you don't spend 1,000 cedis. You spend 900 and you try and put 100 cedis away for a rainy day. Right. If you spend all the 1,000 cedis, you say there's no fiscal space because the day something goes wrong. So do I agree that COVID caused the problem? COVID pushed us.
I see.
But you were on the edge already because there was no, your programs were so designed.
We were at the cusp. We were going to fall anyway.
Yes. Moro, you are sitting on this chair.
Yeah.
If you see me climb up on this chair, you say, hey, Joe, look at your size. Calm down. What if somebody hit you? Then, with all due respect, His Excellency, my Tabaklo. Yes. He's about the smallest person here. He comes and he taps me and I fall down. Of course, who hit me? Who made me fall down? It was he made me fall down. But everybody will ask,
you're going to fall anyway.
What's in this year? That's how I'll explain it. I won't go to go into the program. Just say that prudent behavior for my person, for my corporate, Dalex Finance, for the nation says that you, especially when you knew what the problem was. That's why I had to quote him first. It wasn't as if, I didn't know I was getting this close to the edge. Right. You knew it. He's given us so many instances.
I have a question for you. Someone just sent me a message, and a WhatsApp message, and the person says, why are we even splitting hairs over what constitutes recklessness, and that I should just check the Cambridge dictionary. And it says, doing something dangerous and not worrying about the risk and the possible results.
Exactly.
That's reckless.
That's so you see.
No, but when you watch the president, you watched him on Wednesday deliver the State of the Nation address. Does he come across as somebody who realizes that he made some mistakes and that he needs to acknowledge and accept it, so that going into the future he doesn't
first of all
correct it,
let's
or
be
he doesn't
clear.
repeat it?
Let's be clear. Acknowledging is not the problem. The problem is staring at every Ghanaian in the face.
No, acknowledging the fact that he makes some mistakes.
No, I'm coming. What is important to me is the fact that we won't get here again. Remember, it is not the experience that fixes your life. It is the reflection that fixes you.
Absolutely.
Where are we as a nation in reflecting what has brought us to the floor? So to the ground, to a state of disgrace, to a state where we are in a race to get all the worst statistics in the world. Currency performance, inflation, whatever. why are we not reflecting a bit to see what got us here? I'll tell you what got us here. It was the fact that every time we went to borrow, and he's talked about $2 billion a year, who in our system, which independent authority would have said to us, for example, that guys, I've forecast your revenue. It doesn't work. Of course, IMF will tell you, but they are there. They'll tell you what they can. They can't come and hold a gun to your head. We have to build in issues that will stop us from getting there. Right? And we are not reflecting. Unfortunately, we are behaving as if the experience happened. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's give hope. I'm saying that whereas hope is good, it is only reflection that will stop us from getting to this place again.
I see. That's interesting. Let me now come to Ebenezer. Ebenezer, you play in the public policy space. You look at the way the president structured his statement or the speech. He decides to go back into 2017 to tell us how the economy was doing up until 2020 when COVID happened, and then of course 2022 Russia-Ukraine war. That's the structure. We can call it a policy choice. You know, that's how he decided to approach it. But then he also says that, in as much as he accepts that for the State of the Nation address, he needs to look at all the other aspects of our lives, he decides to focus on the economy and to tell us, because he realizes that everybody's talking about the economy. And so he's going to depart from the usual format. So these two, what you call approaches that the president adopted, do you think it was smart on his part to have done that?
Thank you.
It was good on his part to have done that.
Thank you very much. Let me say that the whole speech, when you read it, you realize that it wasn't very comprehensive enough.
Okay.
Secondly, when you go through as a leader, when things go haywire, and you have to account comprehensively.
Okay.
And you have to take responsibility for what went wrong and what went right. If you listen to the speech and you read through the speech, you realize that there was a certain failure to admit that or to take responsibility, and I think that wasn't a good thing. Okay. First of all, running a country is more like running your household. Or running a country is more like running a company. Let's say Ghana is a Fortune 500 company. In all sincerity, do you think if the president was the CEO of Ghana as a Fortune 500 company, the board will still retain him? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves.
Right.
So if you have been given an 8-year mandate to govern Ghana as a company, and you are left with 2 years, and the figures doesn't reflect what the performance targets were supposed to be, what you first of all need to do is to admit that we did not get certain things right. Secondly, we made certain choices that we shouldn't have made, and then go ahead to prefer the solutions to say the next 2 years, this is what, or these are the major policies I'll be putting in place.
Okay.
Even if not for the immediate benefit of the company now,
right,
that in the next 5-10 years, any CEO who takes over can ride on these tangible projects, policies, and programs to revive the business.
Okay.
So I think that the approach wasn't what I had expected, because you see, one thing we have to all admit is that the president came to power on the back of grand expectations,
right,
grand promises. So the state in which the economy is, people expect grand policy measures and then grand solutions. If you read the speech, apart from the goal for oil policy, right, and the goal pitches, you cannot really identify major policy solutions.
Right.
I was expecting to hear something like, for example, you have established a petroleum hub that is supposed to double the GDP of the economy. Now, I was expecting to see that, look, we are going to focus energies on, say, the petroleum hub to develop revenue-generating infrastructure that will reduce our import bill, that will increase our revenue, and then, of course, increase employment. But you see that the solutions and the way forward wasn't even too clear, you know, which left me a bit disappointed. Because, you see, when you are a leader, there's what we call the political covenant. Mm-hmm. The political covenant is the method through which you come into power. It's a covenant that we all agree that we have subscribed to a democratic framework, and through that democratic framework, every 4 years we elect a leader. Now, when you come through that process, there's another process that a leader is expected, or there's another thing that a leader is supposed to do, which is what? An adherence, entrenchment to the fiscal framework. So you measure the effectiveness of a leader by the level of commitment to the fiscal covenant. Because you don't only have a political covenant, you have a fiscal covenant. The difference between Ghana and any other nation is the commitment of that country's leadership to the fiscal covenant. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the government's commitment to the fiscal covenant that they have established with Ghanaians hasn't really been high. And the economic figures speak for themselves. Some of them, of course, Russia, Ukraine, but way back in 2019, I remember civil society started hinting government about doing their sustainability analysis, adhering to borrowings that are more impactful. For example, when you borrow, everybody with a little bit of economic policy knowledge knows that when you borrow, you have to invest in high earning, quick turnaround, heavy investments that can increase the capacity of the economy to increase or to generate revenue.
Right.
So these warnings were given, and I think that what we are experiencing is a certain level of what we call fiscal rascality, that the president has allowed the finance minister to engage in high-level fiscal rascality. There are external factors. Of course, we all admit that there are external factors, but the borrowing and the investment haven't really reflected in the way the economy is supposed to have grown, the jobs that is supposed to have been created, and of course, you know, the industries that we expected to have emerged from the borrowing process.
Right.
So there's the need for admission, because you are the leader and you are more like the commander-in-chief.
Okay.
When the battles are not going well, you can't win the war.
Okay.
And as a commander-in-chief, if things are not going well, you have to admit to your soldiers and those who are following you that, look, this is what we are doing, this is the way forward. I admit that I didn't implement certain strategies well. This is what we intend to do, and we hope to win certain battles in order to win.
Why do you think the president has a difficulty admitting where he made mistakes, so to speak, arguably made mistakes?
Well, I think that is a governance style. And I used to, way back in 2018, I used to warn, I said that in the age of social media, any government that takes over, you should be careful with the sophistry. You see, because when you engage in a certain level of sophistry, you'll be exposed.
Okay.
So I think it's a governance style that is not too pleasing, in my estimation. We should be able to adhere to the standards and the benchmarks, especially on the background from which the president himself was elected.
Right.
You promise to do certain things, you establish a certain standard in opposition.
Okay.
So it is just expected that when you come in, you adhere to some of the standards that you felt others didn't, live up to.
Okay.
And then you can do better.
Let me do this. I'm just going to read a few messages. I'll come to Kingsley and then Godwin comes in. Alaji Hamza from Pig Farm says, good morning, my brother. In my humble opinion, former President Mahama has hit the nail right on the head. The mark of a leader should be ready at all times. The mark of a good leader is someone who's ready at all times to take responsibility of problems in the country and take steps to address it. But the problem I have with this government is that they always feel they know it all. And for that matter, they don't need to take advice from anyone. And we're where we are simply because of the arrogance of functionaries of this government. Very soon, we will be told the earthquake in Turkey is the cause of our economic problems. God have mercy. Ghanaians have to think twice and remove or chase this boring government who's taking us to the grave away. We, the importers, are suffering. Thanks from Samuel. Good morning, Mr. Moro. My name is Bright from Sakomono. My question to Akufo-Addo and his communicators is, why are they blaming their incompetence on COVID-19 that we are paying for? No country in this world is charging her citizens for COVID-19 except Ghana. In China, where COVID-19 originates from, they are not charging their citizens. Enough is enough. Good morning, my brother. The State of the Nation address delivered by His Excellency Nana Addo was the biggest scam of all times. As the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, he was so insensitive to ignore the happenings at Ashaman. The excruciating and unbearable economic conditions under which Ghanaians live now is caused by Nana Addo Bawumia government's smart borrowing with reckless and visionless application of borrowed resources. John Dramani Mahama for president. That's coming from Hadi Pagaza. And this one here says, good morning, Moro. I like this Kingsley guy on your show, the MPP guy. Please tell him that he should keep up the good job. But I want to tell the other guys on the panel that they are being too hard and harsh on the NPP government. Nana Addo has done well. He may have made some mistakes, but please credit him for what he's done well. And stop lampooning and lambasting him as if he's done what? The statement is incomplete, unfortunately. The MP government we told you not to vote for them. What they know is to share money for the, I don't know about sharing money for themselves. They say they know nothing about governing God Save Ghana. John Dapa from Sunyani in Bono region. And this one says that, good morning, Moro. I like the question you asked, Mr. Eduzi Tamaklo, that why must the president accept responsibility for making Ghana look as good as it is now? That's echo. That's what I call that's the word I'm looking for. It's escaped me. But that's echo from Sunyani. There's another echo from Takrady. He says, Moro, please kindly allow the NDC man to educate us because we need to know more what the president has done to us Ghanaians. Thanks. That's another echo from Takrady. Good morning, Moro. Please ask the government appointee what exactly they have used the borrowed money for. Where are the investment areas? Please ask them for us. Joel from Accra, Newtown. I'm John. Shame more to these swindlers. Arrogant group of people. We have the men. They have nothing. The Lord will judge them soon. Shame. Oh my God. Yausechi says, I'm disappointed in the NDC and the media for not highlighting this, or they didn't hear. As early as 18th April 2018, the renowned IMF World Bank official called Masood Ahmed was warning African countries which were living dangerously due to over-borrowing, and Ghana was part of these countries. Edgar has even alluded to this before. Mr. Joe Jackson also knows this. Simply, we're in a mess because we can't service our debt, and not COVID and others. Others like Cote d'Ivoire changed their course by even reducing a number of ministers, but our Ethiopia government never heeded and landed us in an abyss of debt. Yausechi from Accra. And this one here says, please let Finance Minister bring back. Okay, so like I said, okay, Kweku Brampa aside, Ashali Botre. Well, this thing about finance should bring back money. He's not personally taking money from anybody. If it's about his company, that's fine. But also remember, you separate the owner of a company from the company itself. Yep, that's very important. Good morning, Metro TV. It looks as if the economic management team is using all die-be-die policy, meaning you're already close to the grave and waiting for that. That's come from George in Ho. And then this one here from Kwesi from Ashali Botre says, great discourse so far. It is just right to judge Nana Addo and Bawumia based on their promises in opposition. They were too harsh on JM, but now they want to be cuddled. It will not work. Okay, so Kamal Dean says that Moro, Kamal Dean Namasama Bruni says, Moro, the state of the nation addressed by the president has given some glimmers of hope that the economy shall bounce back. My greetings to Jerry Ahmed Swaib of Koda, an incoming parliamentary candidate for Weja constituency. That's coming from Kamal Kamal Dean. And finally, the president just came to tell Kwekwanas's stories. Majority of what he said was not true. I've got so many of your messages. I'll take a short break. When I come back, I'll be asking the question about. So the president said something, and I'm going to just quote that quickly before we take a break. And I'll get Kingsley to expatiate more on that. He says, I have said, and many others, including the managing director of the IMF, have said that the economy was doing well until COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine took us off course. Maybe because of the severity of the present difficulties, or maybe because it suits the preconceived agenda. Some people are unwilling to accept that we were on a good trajectory until the arrival of COVID-19. The Ghanaian people, however, accepted this proposition as evidence in the results of the 2020 presidential election, which were unanimously endorsed and upheld by the 7-member panel of the Supreme Court. So essentially, you sit there and say, I have borrowed, I've been reckless, blah, blah, blah. You said all of that before 2020, and I won the election. So you keep talking. I'll be right back. Hello, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. We have about 35 minutes to conclude our conversation on the state of the nation. We want to ask whether what the president delivered on Wednesday was actually the true state of the nation. And what I've said, perspectives are being shared, and it's getting very, very interesting. I do have in the studio Kingsley Amoakwa Boedu. He is, I hope I got the pronunciation right. Amoakwa Boedu, sorry. Kingsley Amoakwa Boedu. He's a private legal practitioner and also a member of the MPP's communications. I also do have him in Ataki Yamusa. He is a public policy analyst and also a development advocate. I also have lawyer Godwin Eduzi Tamaklo. I call him His Excellency and also call him counsel sometimes. Watch out for him. You never know. Tomorrow he may be the president of this country. He is also a member of the NDC's communications team and also one of the members of the NDC's legal team as well. And also Mr. Joe Jackson, very, very familiar with that name, don't you? Just like the rest as well. I mean, he was like, he's our go-to person when it comes to accounts and finance. And once we invite him in, he's not very busy. He's always here. We're so grateful, Mr. Joe Jackson. He is the Director of Strategy and Operations with Dalex Finance. And so I read something before we went on break. But before I repeat that, let me again, somebody says they want to know the WhatsApp line again. It's 0249 155 646. 0249 155 646. So, Mr. Kingsley Amoakwa Boedu, I read something before we went on break, and essentially what the president is saying is that, look, you can say whatever you want to say, but as far as it's concerned, the fact remains that the economy was doing very well until COVID happened. And then you had the Russia-Ukraine war, which sort of, made matters worse. But the counter-argument people have asked time and again, okay, is that COVID and the pandemic, of course, the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war did not affect only Ghana. It affected everybody and everywhere. Most countries, even if you want to go far, we check what's happening with our neighboring countries. And the fact that the macroeconomic indicators are far better than theirs. Currency is doing well. Debt to GDP is way better than ours. Fiscal deficit is way better than ours. I can go on and on and on with the macro, economic indicators. So to be blaming and to continuously be blaming COVID and Russia-Ukraine war is not a smart thing to do, because it is quite obvious that these can't be the major reasons why we're where we are today.
Okay. Under these circumstances, all right, it is said it's uneasy lies ahead that wears a cap, all right? And the buck stops with the president or with the government. And so however or wherever we found ourselves, all right, the normal person walking on the street is looking at his pocket and is looking at when he goes to buy something, what does he get in exchange for what he has? True. We can go into, and my brother G was going into facts and whatnot. We can do that. Right. All right. Mm. But at this stage, someone wants to hear, how am I getting out of this place? What is the hope? What is the future? Now, the more people seek to go into the nitty-gritties of it, then you are pushed to the point where you are also coming out with facts. Now, the president may have said that we have done ABC.
We're on course.
Yes. It doesn't mean to say that he's not admitting that we are in a difficulty. That is not what he's seeking to say.
Right.
He's saying that we are in a difficulty. We have also chalked certain successes.
Right.
All right? And then he's talking about, that is why he even said that for this particular State of the Nation's address, he is positing it within the economic context.
Right.
There could be some educational factors, energy factors. It all boils down to the economy. I remember when Bill Clinton was running for presidency, that was the slogan. It's about economy. I don't want to put it in the same way they put it because we are because when you put it, yeah, that's we're in a Ghanaian context. It won't be nice, but that's what it is. And so, however we talk about this, and there's a lot to be said. My senior brother said that COVID was the big thing that hit the economy, and then Russia tipped it over. I don't see anyone who would dispute this fact. I don't see anyone who disputes this fact. All right, so the moment we talk about them, we bring that in, and people are saying we are seeking justification. The fact is that you see, after rebasing,
you don't want to accept you borrow too much.
That's not the issue.
Okay.
That's not the issue. If I'm running my home,
yes,
all right, I make projections because leadership is about vision. Mm-hmm. It's not just managing.
Right.
It's about vision. I make projections. I want to achieve A, B, C, and therefore I'll do this and do that. No one knew. In fact, my senior brother said that he was thinking the terrorist activity in the western region from Mali and Kombebi will be a spillover, and then famine and whatnot. No one looked at, because then if someone is a policy person also looking at the issues, he will look at these are the potential threats. How are we going to solve or deal with them if issues happen?
Right.
No one would think about COVID. No one would think about Russian-Ukraine war. So, you see, we are where we are faced with these challenges. The focus should be, how do we get out of it? Now, my friend here also is saying that the speech was not comprehensive enough. The president himself has admitted it, that some of the reports are coming from the ministries. Why would he say that when he's giving the State of the Nation's address? These are facts. He's admitting that some of the reports are coming in from the ministries. So, and at this stage, if I'm hungry, I'm the head of my home, and my children are hungry, and my wife is having issues with something that you may have done, is it now that you're going to now be so comprehensive and detailed enough? You think someone will listen to you? No. So we have to be realistic. Realistic issue is that we find ourselves here. If we know if we take these steps out of this, we will get out. Now, he made a promise. Wait. He made a promise that he would turn it around within a few months. He was even realistic to push it beyond 1 year. He also said that the IMF will not drastically and quickly solve our problems. He didn't say that. All right? So these are realistic things he's saying. And then we should move on. Then my friend is also saying that he didn't take responsibility. I don't know when he has admitted that there are issues, and then he's saying that does not detract from the fact that within the same time, certain achievements have been done, certain impetus and equipment have been given the military and the security services, they have been roads and whatnot. I don't know how that still does not become an admission, unless the general import was that he should just come and say, yes, whatever you say is true. I don't think that's
specific mention of a shaman he said was missing.
Yes. And I, even as I sit here now, as a lawyer and as a law lecturer, I am very cautious in making pronouncements on a shaman issue. So if he has come the next morning after a shaman, when matters are now evolving, why do you want to speak to inflame passions? And let's admit that what happened there is wrong.
Okay.
Wrong on all grounds. Wrong. Both the lynching of the boy, the murder, it's wrong. Even on our statute books, it's wrong. Then the military also going there because we understand that the police were doing their investigations and all that. The police will not just go in clothes. Some of them will be plain clothes and all that. What if the persons who were also beaten were part of the undercover? Okay. So all dimensions. But this is a time where we have to put our heads down. Calm heads. Right. Then we will go to the issue.
So, so basically what you're saying is that let's talk less about what has brought us here and talk about how we're going to come out.
So basically what I'm saying is that there's a lot of blaming this and that. How do we? No, we may do some blame game because if someone has made a wrong decision, the person has to be able to correct those. Right. But the focus more should be, what are we doing to get out of here? And my brother admits that at least we have the gold for oil, and we have the gold purchasing to restock the gold of the Bank of Ghana. These are great policies. But unfortunately, we so politicize the atmosphere that the moment you come up with any innovative idea, our brothers will bastardize it. Our brothers just throw spanners in your wheel. And then before I realize, the narrative around it is so negative that it will take a bold leader to still push
through. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Why did the president decide to take us back to 2017 when the numbers were beginning to look good? Never mind the counter-argument by the NDC. The numbers were looking good at the time because these were all what you call the benefits, of some of the policy decisions that were taken by the erstwhile administration. That's a separate conversation. But I'm saying that, why did the president decide, and maybe Eben will help us understand why the president decided to do that, to adopt that style. So he starts from 2017 and walk us through all the fine numbers, and then decides to leave out 2020, 2023, 2022, 2023 for some reason. He doesn't mention the economic indicators in last year and this year. And then, again, there's something, and then he talks about COVID. Yes. I mean, he spent quite a significant amount of time talking about COVID and its impact on the economy. And then goes ahead to say that we took many decisions. We did many things which, according to science, were the most reliable and trusted ways to save lives and livelihoods at the time, which may look strange and unnecessary today. But that is from the safe perspective of not waking up to check on the COVID-19 infection on death rate. And then he talked about the fact that he said, who would have thought today that nobody would be questioning the fumigation of schools and markets? I recall vividly the straight talking I received from a group of our most eminent physicians and scientists, and it goes on and on and on. Point being that, why must you today be questioning how much was spent on how the COVID funds were spent when we're talking about saving lives at the time? And that how much money, I'm not quoting the president verbatim, but point is, you cannot cost, by the stretch of any imagination, lives of human beings so that you don't even have to be questioning how much was spent on what. And that as far as is concerned, nothing untoward has happened. Nothing dishonorable has happened as far as how the COVID funds were spent. Never mind what the Auditor General has already produced and what the Auditor General has told all of us. Why did the president do that? So two questions. One, he decides to go back as far back as in 2017, and then he leaves out 2022, 2023, and then talks about the fact that, yes, I'll talk about COVID, but nobody should be questioning why or how the COVID funds were spent. Why would the president do that?
Okay, I think you are putting words in the president's mouth.
Maybe I'll read what he said, if you don't mind. Yes. You can start. I'll look for that particular quote.
No, you read it because it's based on that.
Okay, so he says, yes. He said, Mr. Speaker, you might remember that we could not produce Veronica buckets fast enough. Today, it is not an obligatory item on anyone's list of purchases. In dealing with the crisis generally, I did not meet anyone brave enough to suggest that considerations of money should be a hindrance to anything we needed to do in the fight against the virus. I was, and I'm grateful that the people of Ghana rose to the occasion and together we went through the crisis and came out well by defining the doomsday predictions about the inevitability of dead bodies on our streets. I'm grateful that we saw the wisdom in helping each other, and I thank those who contributed their expertise, time, and energy to fight against the virus. Now, he says, the Speaker, it is precisely because the economic fallout from the pandemic is so widespread and long-lasting that it is important to show clearly that the COVID funds were not misused. Were not misused. It is critical that we do not lose the confidence of the people that a crisis that they were led to believe we were all in it together was abused for personal gain. So don't say that. We shouldn't say that. It was government that asked for the COVID funds to be audited. And I can assure this House that nothing dishonorable was done with the COVID funds. The responses from the Ministers for Health and Finance on January 23 and 25, 2023, respectfully have sufficiently laid to rest the queries from the Auditor General's report. And I believe any objective scrutiny of these statements from the Health and Finance Ministries would justify this conclusion. And then he goes ahead to break down how the COVID funds were spent.
Okay.
So he's saying that, why are you even talking about how the COVID funds were spent? What's your problem? You know?
Okay,
There's nothing worth
that's your understanding of what he's saying.
It is what it is.
It's your understanding of what he's saying.
Really?
Yes, it's your understanding.
Could there be any other understanding of what the man has said?
As I said, the position we are in now, whatever the president said, someone is looking at my pocket.
Okay.
So, when we are also trying to explain it, allow us to explain it.
Please do.
Because at the end of the day, we must respect the person on the street.
Right.
And that person is not so much interested in facts and figures, but solutions.
Right.
And that is why government is voted to offer solutions. Okay. Now, I went out to buy hand sanitizers, a lot of them. All right. I went to a place, it was 2 cedis. The same place where I had run out, it was 16 cedis. Then I think it was skyrocketing. I went to a place to buy, there was this transparent rubber-like face mask that doesn't cover properly. I bought a lot of them for my family. All right. Then it turns out it doesn't even solve the problem. All right. We all did certain things, a lot of them. Then we realized that, the science is rather that we should do something. So what he's saying is that, yes, we took steps at that moment in time when we needed to save life. He's not saying that don't come back and say and don't even look at it. He's saying that there are instances where we've taken certain steps where the information and the science at that time, such even the lock-up, it shut down the economy. Then it came out that, it is here to stay, so we better live with it and find ways around it. By which time more than 6 months had gone. We had issued executive instruments in Parliament and whatnot. So that is what he is trying to say. Not that, in fact, you have no right to question what we've done. He's saying that puts it within the context of, he said, we don't know how to bring back a life. We know how to bring back the economy. Precisely. Right. Precisely. You see, so that's the context within which these things are being discussed. Okay. Not that you have no right, no one should question. And then if he says that the uses of it were good, were responsible, as I said, within the context at that time, what was the science? Now, if someone is saying it wasn't, then there's a forum. It is not, the forum will not be at the SONA delivery to now talk about empirical evidence being proffered, suggest this and that. That's not the forum.
Okay.
As I said, as a SONA, as a leader within this, where we find ourselves, you must bring hope.
Okay.
You must bring hope. Right. And then he's also said that some of the report from the sectors of the ministry are coming in. So,
wait.
Yes, because then, as I said, the forum, Auditor General's report has come.
Okay.
Okay. We have gone to the market with it. How many types of such reports have come? And then by the time Parliament sat on it, there were answers to some of the issues. In fact, when we went to the market with $102 million, the ministry came up with an explanation. Is it not the fact that the ministry has come up with an explanation? And as a disciple of contract law, I mean, these are there. You pay and then you draw down. There's nothing wrong with that. If it means that we should go back for our money, the auditor report itself, suggests that do take this step.
Okay.
You see, so let's not say that you don't even have a right to. Then what is this? Why did even the Constitution say that the president come to Parliament and deliver at least once a year?
Right.
Why did we even set up parliamentary committees to investigate these? Because in every society we should have a very up and doing civil society.
Okay.
We should have, when my brother Ediji is saying he's doing the things he does, I am happy because you need a very strong opposition to put you on your toes.
All right.
But it's not to say that things are not being done or
to take us out of the
difficulties. And then you are saying that why did we go to 2017?
Yes.
All right. Now, it was a reference being made, okay, and said that if at 2020 we were doing bad, we will not have won the election. And I agree.
Okay.
That if we were doing that bad, we will not have won the election. Then he's saying that now, 22 months from now, he's promising to turn things around.
Okay.
And realistically saying that even when the $3 billion come, that will not solve all our problems.
Okay.
That is a president who's being realistic about issues and admitting it and offering hope.
Thank you so very much, Kingsley. So Godwin, I'll ask you this. Now, I'm government. I ask that COVID funds be audited. If I had something to hide, I won't ask that these funds be audited. So what is dishonorable about that?
You see, excuse me to say, our president, last scandal.
How so?
You see, our president cannot even be honest with the people who gave him the mandate. Mr. Akufo-Addo had resisted all, suggestions to audit COVID funds. Do you know who caused him to audit COVID funds?
Who did?
The IMF. As part of the IMF conditions. It is not Akufo-Addo's own volition. Such a dishonest leader. Look, I recall the NDC minority in parliament, led by Kese Atuforsen, got a private member motion agreed for a committee to be set up to audit COVID funds. Immediately, Speaker Bagwin traveled and Joe Wise took over. They torpedoed that private member motion. They torpedoed it. In fact, it was July the 1st when Akufo-Addo decided to sign on to the IMF program. The IMF demanded that they want to see COVID-19 funds audited. It is not Akufo-Addo. And that is why, even when the report came, he caused his Attorney General to basically question the Auditor General. Do you think that if Akufo-Addo was happy with the audit report, his Attorney General, his principal legal advisor, would be damning the Auditor General? No. They were not happy. And look, let's situate the conversation well. In all, we had 33 billion Ghana cedis by reason of COVID-19. That's almost $3 billion. How much are we asking from the IMF? $3 billion. So we've had $3 billion in one fiscal year, and we squandered it. And today we are back to the IMF asking for $3 billion. That is why I'm saying that our president demonstrates dishonesty, even in his public conversation. You, Mr. Akufo-Addo, never asked for COVID-19 funds to be audited. You were under pressure by the IMF.
What's the source of this information you're giving us now?
The finance minister himself. In the document he presented to Parliament, he stated it. The criteria for the IMF engagement.
That's true. I remember.
Debt restructuring was one. 2, audit of COVID-19 funds. What is he talking about? So, you see, Mr. Akufo-Addo should know that if he had disrespect for MPP members, not all Ghanaians, and look, and I've always maintained, if you look at the COVID funds, even the Auditor General, he only audited 11 billion. Out of 33.
Are you saying this is a watered-down version?
Yes. Hold on. The entire COVID fund is 33 billion. If you read the Auditor General report, what they audited amounted to $11 billion. Do you know why?
Why?
Do you know why?
Why?
Because the rest of the money, they claim it was used for budgetary support. So those budgetary support were never audited. They were never.
But if they were not audited, how are you able to tell whether they were treated dishonorably or not? Let me use the words, the president's words.
No.
I'm talking about that.
Hold on. COVID-19 came.
Yes.
You said there is a disease.
Yes.
So one, you went to Parliament and told Parliament that, you know what? There is a Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Yes.
There is the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which mandates that you cannot use the stabilization fund until a certain period. Parliament relaxed the law. Out of $274 million in the account, you took 200 million. At the exchange rate, it gave you 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. That you use for free water. That you use for food. That you use for all those other stuff. Right? You've done all this. So what else are you talking about? Then you now tell us that, oh, money came, but I use it to pay district assembly common fund arrears. How is that COVID-19 related? How is that COVID-19 related? So you misapply the COVID funds. That is what we call misapplication. That is what you did.
But is that an offense? Is that a crime?
It's not an issue of an offense. You must first admit that there has been wrongdoing.
Right.
And you see, it is this.
But the impression that was created before the monies were chopped.
Yes, in fact.
But then it was misapplied.
I would say, in account, they will say, Omu discano, nyafo, nyafo. Look, let me give you. Even the Auditor General's report. Do you know what happened? The Auditor General found, as a fact, that 11 million Ghana cedis was used for free water, free food. When the Auditor General demanded for receipt, do you know what they gave the Auditor General? Honor certificates.
Oh.
Yes. Ask any auditor. This man runs a bank. If any of his workers, right, comes to him with honor certificate, do you know what it means? What are they working? These are companies, they claim that they bought food from companies registered with TIN numbers. Which company today, with tax identification number, will give you honor certificates? So, you see, once we felt that COVID was a pandemic, they saw it as a bonanza, spoils of war, and they shared it. Look, and I have always said, if we do a proper audit of COVID-19 funds, people, appointees of Mr. Akufo-Addo, persons associated with Mr. Akufo-Addo, they will walk to Nsawan prison without asking for a trial. How do you justify honor certificates? So if you ask Deles Finance to provide you food for Ghanaians, Deles Finance is a registered company. It has tax identification number. So were they not paying taxes for the service they rendered? And they were using honor certificate to justify 11 million Ghana cedis of taxpayers' money. How in God's name do you do that? Two, do you know that out of COVID-19 money, they spent 36 million Ghana cedis of it to David Ajay for coordination, consultancy, when it comes to Agenda 111 projects. 36 million Ghana cedis. How do you do this? How do you do this? David Ajay, one individual, 36 million Ghana cedis. How are you going to justify it? Do you know that they spent 100 million Ghana cedis, dollars, amounting to 598 million Ghana cedis? That's the exchange rate at that time, claiming that they use it in paying for hand sanitizers, PPEs, Veronica buckets for the reopening of secondary schools. Effectively, you were given each secondary school in this country 1 million Ghana cedis. TV, naked TV of taxpayers' money. Do you know that they claim that they gave 400 million Ghana cedis to the Electoral Commission for the purposes of rolling out the voter registration exercise in 2020 out of COVID-19 money? Look, Mr. Akufo-Addo should not gaslight us. Look, the level of rots that Akufo-Addo is superintending on. Interestingly enough, for the first time, the State of the Nation address, how come he never talked about the Special Prosecutor's Office? Because today, persons appointed by him have been found to have engaged in all kinds of criminal activities, some being prosecuted. Akufo-Addo, when he was in opposition, told us that if you want to make money, go to the private sector. At the same time, his own cousin, the finance minister, was making money out of every borrowing that he was doing for and on behalf of this republic. That's the use of public office for private gain. Is that what Akufo-Addo promised? The reckless use of luxurious private jet was that part of his promise? And sometimes, look at Akufo-Addo in 2016. Monsomenhwe, Ghana Yaye Mobododo. Yaya mobo kradodo ni etisikaso eni ebre. Finally, let me read something to you.
Please do, because we have just 8 minutes.
You asked a very important question. How come Akufo-Addo went back to 2017? And look, in 2015, this is 24th March 2015. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as a distinguished speaker, series, Central University, he said IMF bailout will the anchor hold, and this is what he says. Notwithstanding the bailout agreement with the IMF, on March 20th, 2015, Moody's downgraded Ghana's credit rating further into junk territory with a negative outlook. This is 6th level below investment grade and signifies high credit risk. Today, which level are we? This is 2015 Bawumia. Quote, he proceeds. This means that investors are not yet convinced about the prospects for the economy, even with an IMF bailout. Today, we are below junk status. Restricted junk status. That is the lowest you can have for a sovereign republic. But even more importantly, this is what Bawumia says. He said, how can a government be seeking to contract this magnitude of non-concessionary loans at this time when it does not have enough cash to meet its statutory payments? That was Bawumia. Today, which one of our statutory payments are we able to meet? This Assembly Common Fund is in arrears. MP's Common Fund is in arrears. NHIS is in arrears. Okay. Finally, they say that the economy was doing well until COVID. How incredible. The IMF, Article 2 review for 2019. I have the report. Page 10. This is what they say. It said the political budget cycle remains at a critical risk, along with Ghana's exposure to investment sentiment, given large financing needs and lower external buffers. Lower external buffer. 2019 review of Ghana's economic performance. How then do you say it is COVID that brought this? Let me finish with it.
No, we have.
No, just 30 seconds. He said the risk of debt distress remains high. 2019.
Okay.
And so this when the president tells you that the economy was doing well until COVID. Like Senior Jackson said, COVID only came to expose the depth of the rots.
Okay. I don't know how you intend to do this because, Mr. Joe Jackson, we have just, I'm so sorry, it was just about 5 minutes to wrap up. Oh la la. Yes, a few comments, just a few comments, and then
listen,
Ben can come in.
For me, first of all, forgive me, but even the audit of the COVID-19 funds, however important it is, it actually says nothing to the state of the nation. Put that one down. Really, the state of the nation now is that between us and the doomsday scenario is sitting an agreement with the IMF, right? All that the president said was that, trust me, by 30th of March this month, in 3 weeks' time, I will come back to you with an agreement. He didn't tell us what race they ran. He didn't give us any plan B. That is all. For me, that is my worry. But hey, as a citizen of Ghana, 3 weeks, it will come soon. And we'll hold him by his own words. But what worries me is that at the end of the State of the Nation address, right, all that is between us and a doomsday scenario is an agreement with the IMF that is due in 3 weeks' time. No other plan was proffered, except for going back, looking at past victories, and not addressing the fact that the president says we should trust him. But there's a huge trust gap between this government and the public. He didn't address that trust gap.
He missed out on an opportunity to fix that trust deficit.
Yes, because as we sit, all I know and the common man knows in the street is that Do we hear sirens blaring? Yes. Do we have more appointees than we believe is required? Yes. Has this government demonstrated to us that it is sharing in our pain? Okay. Unfortunately, no. Right. But hey, it's 3 weeks. So people of Ghana, let's have patience. 3 weeks.
Keep your fingers crossed.
It will come.
Eben, I don't know how you intend to use your 3 minutes, or in fact in less than 2 minutes, but in a nutshell, how would you rate the president's speech? I mean, you have said time and again that, you know, it wasn't reassuring, it wasn't comprehensive enough, but what else do you have to say before you take leave, before we end the show?
Well, as I indicated...
I mean, what else was missing?
Well, you know, as we all agree, the solutions weren't too convincing.
Okay.
Unless maybe the economic management team and the government will have to come up with other tangible ideas beyond just the goal for oil and the other ones that were announced. But we need to begin to look at, you know, civil society and the general public, we've been asking that at least, for nothing at all, reduce the size of government.
Okay.
That is something that will fix the trust gap that Mr. Joe is talking about.
Right.
Because you can't be...
Interesting, there were people who were actually expecting the president to have said that, well, you know, there were economic difficulties, I've heard you, I'm going to reduce the size of the government, but we didn't hear that.
Yeah. So that is very, very, very important. The size of government and administrative rationalizations and all of that, those are things that we need to. Also,
okay,
long-term policies, strategic investments that can help with the structure. The president, he used to speak about the Gagisberg economy. We need to think about long-term structural policies or programs that will anchor the economy on a long-term growth trajectory.
Right.
You know, those ideas weren't preferred.
Right.
And of course, the fiscal responsibility law and then additional laws that will basically help in terms of reducing what I call the fiscal rascality.
Right.
You know, we need to really
deal with it.
Deal with that because
So you're one of those who thinks that the president didn't reflect reality.
No, I don't think.
All right, so I want to thank you guys for your time. It's been wonderful having you here. Mr. Kingsley Amwakwa Bwedu, you had two, so that's fair. He's a lawyer. In fact, this is maiden edition, and I can tell you that Godwin has given him a baptism of fire. We'll see how it goes the next time he shows up here.
and that Godwin was my former student.
Irony of this life, Anyway, and also Mr. Ebenezer Taki Yamuza, fantastic. Not his maiden edition of media, but maiden edition on the inside pages. And also Mr. Joe Jackson, Dalex Finance, in charge of the strategy and operations. And my name is Aldo Moro. Thanks for joining us. It's been wonderful having you. Now, those of you whose message I couldn't read, I beg you. I had more than 50 messages. I don't know I was going to read all of that. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.